Howdy, folks, and welcome to Fireside Friday. It's the show where we take a deep dive on a single song and see what we can learn from it. My name's Cary Nightingale, and with me as always is my co-host, Kevin Nebrich. Let's light this match. In today's episode, we'll be diving deep into 1998's What It's Like by Everlast. The studio version features acoustic guitar, drums and a turntable, bass, vocals, keyboards, and a string section. Kev, what can you tell us about the lyrical structure of this song?
What It's Like challenges the listener to practice cognitive empathy, imagining oneself in another's position. And it does so by presenting three disparate stories featuring characters suffering in the midst of highly contentious societal issues with no simple one-size-fits-all solutions. A close examination of the lyrics reveals a meticulous structure. Each verse has a different main character going through a difficult situation that's expressed in great detail. The last two bars of each verse are used to segue each story back to the underlying message of the song, and the last bar ends on a perfect rhyme that connects each verse and completes each story with a tidy bow and a call to action. The chorus is devoid of external detail altogether, repeating the line, "Then you really might know what it's like," giving us a breather before jumping headfirst into another heavily depressing story. The bridge balances external and internal details to provide a list of message-appropriate thoughts and imagery from the narrator's perspective. The narrator expresses that he feels very fortunate, comparatively, and leaves us with his observation that our situations and experiences are often dictated by the circumstances into which we are born. My favorite line in this piece is, "They call her a killer, they call her a sinner, they call her a whore." The use of anaphora really sells this line and makes it easy to imagine being judged so matter-of-factly over a decision that one would likely struggle with quite deeply. It says a lot in very few words. All right, Cary, I have to insist that you pick a line from this song that you like.
Wow, now I really might know what it's like to have to choose. Really, though, I just appreciate the craftsmanship that went into the lyrics. You know, I've talked before about putting in the effort to make dovetails rather than just banging the words together with a hammer until they kind of fit. To take that analogy a step further, there's an old saying that I like. A laborer uses his hands, a tradesman adds his head, and an artist adds his heart. Everlast would qualify as an artist, according to that old saw. But all that lyrical craftiness wouldn't mean much if the words weren't backed by appropriate music. So let's explore that. I think it's safe to say that Everlast intended this to be a serious message, and all the obvious compositional choices back that up. We've got a minor key, spending most of our time on D minor. We've got a middling tempo in common time. It hovers around 86 beats per minute, so not too fast to get your blood raging, but also not too slow to put you to sleep. The dominant instrument is a steel-stringed acoustic guitar, and there's a string section that helps fill out the sound, but with a subtle enough arrangement that it doesn't come off as either too lush or overly dramatic. Most of this song uses the same basic three-chord riff. Over the course of 5 minutes, you'd think that would become very wearying. But Everlast varies his picking pattern and the fretted notes occasionally just enough to keep it interesting. There's also a different progression in the interludes that link the various sections of the tune together. To my ears, Everlast's voice sounds bluesy, which is appropriate enough given the album title of Whitey Ford Sings the Blues. I think the contributing factor here is the way he approaches certain notes in the melody. He bends his voice into the target note in the same way I would bend into a note on the guitar to give a little extra emphasis. Although for me, it also gives myself a little extra time to think about what I'm going to play next. The thing, though, that elevates this track to iconic or at least memorable status, though, is the use of the turntable. It's hardly a common element of blues songs. Whether you like it or not, that's the subjective part. So, Kev, I think we should have a little fireside chat about the subjective appeal of this song. But that'll have to wait. It's time for a short break. This one's brought to you by Dr. Measure's Home Trepanation Kit, because the strangest of circumstances call for Dr-astic measures. You need this kit like you need a hole in the head. We'll be right back. Howdy, folks, and welcome back. As promised, it's time for a little fireside chat. Now, even though I described this track as iconic, I had to listen to it over a dozen times and kind of felt preached at by the end of it. Kev, how do you feel about the overall message of this song?
I think the message of this song was important when it was written, and I argue that it's probably never been more important to us than right now. That being said, I think maybe the delivery is a little too direct, and that the chorus really does a thorough job of bashing the listener over the head. I would say that Everlast is more effective in this song at moving the audience intellectually than emotionally.
Now, I wonder if what might be happening is that the very rigid rhyme structure is stealing attention away from the underlying message, almost like being a little too clever for its own good. That's something you should know about, Kev. And all those perfect yet monosyllabic rhymes, they start to sound, kitschy or cheesy. So that's another thing that might be distracting from the message.
You're absolutely right. Perfect rhymes, I think, can create a sense of closure for the listener. And in this song, they're used at the end of every verse and every couplet. Open idea, close idea, next idea. I think a really good example of what I'm trying to get at would be a nursery rhyme or a limerick. Cary, do you have any good nursery rhymes off the top of your head?
Yeah, I think I do here. There once was a girl named Regina.
Forget I asked.
I can't really remember the rest anyway.
Okay, good. But they tend to have
vagina.
Predictable structures. They rely heavily on perfect rhymes. And another thing they generally have in common is that they're short, they're silly, they're not very deep. Hardly the kind of thing that can carry this kind of emotional weight. I'm certainly guilty of this in my own writing, and I'm starting to think that maybe I should be more sparing with perfect rhymes, depending on the context of the song that I'm writing. That's why I think this song might have benefited from a less strict rhyme scheme, allowing for some of the ideas in the song to feel unresolved.
Unresolved, eh? Sounds like a perfect time to move on. So, Kev, what did you think of the repeat listenability value of what it's like?
Repeat listenability for me is relatively high, considering my breakdown of the lyrics. I think this song offers a compelling message that maybe wanes a bit over repeat listens as the pattern becomes more and more recognizable to the listener.
Yeah, and even though I mentioned that I felt a little preached at by the dozenth or so listen, I do think there's value to this track. You've got an innovative blend of blues and hip-hop flavors, positive message of perspective taking that we all probably need to hear from time to time, and a distinct lyrical craft. Add it all together, you got a pretty valuable song, even if it doesn't exactly light all of our asses on fire to, actually do something about disadvantaged and victimized folks out there. But Kev, this was your selection, so how did you score it?
I rated What It's Like by Everlast at a 7.6 out of 10 on the TuneScore scale.
As always, we invite and encourage you, our dear audience, to give a listen to this track that we've discussed today. It's on our TuneScore Tracks playlist on our YouTube channel.
While you're there, make sure to like the video and subscribe to the channel, and leave us a comment letting us know what you thought of our score and critique. If you're an up-and-coming songwriter, that's also a great place to recommend one of your songs for a tune score and some good old-fashioned, honest feedback. We'd love to hear from you.
We've had a lot of fun today, and we hope you did too. That's been Kevin Nebrich. I've been Cary Nightingale. We'll see you in the next one. Until then, stay sound.
Remembering that there are actual people at the center of these arguments for whom the issue might not be so cut and dry is very important.
So, hang on. You mean to tell me that real human beings face difficult circumstances and decisions, and that sociocultural frameworks are likely to categorize these people into us's and them's? Sounds like a stretch, but I'll buy it for the sake of this conversation.